It was the most beautiful night of my life. The perfect dress, the perfect man, the perfect wedding suite. Everything was meant to be forever. We arrived back at the hotel just past 11, exhausted but exhilarated. My husband, David, poured 2 glasses of champagne. He smiled, kissed me, and said, "Just a quick call, 10 minutes, baby." That was the last time I saw him for hours. I was left alone, in my wedding dress, staring at an empty room. But the worst wasn't the silence. It was the moment the clock struck midnight, and I heard a sound from the hallway that was too heavy, too strange, and definitely not human. It was the sound of a key turning in the lock, and whatever came through that door was carrying a secret that shattered my fairy tale forever. Welcome to Voice of Alicia, where stories breathe, emotions speak, and every word paints a world of its own. Close your eyes, relax your mind, and step into a story crafted just for you. The silk of my dress felt like a beautiful lie against my skin. It was our wedding night, the culmination of a perfect fairy tale day, and I was sitting alone in a ridiculously luxurious suite, the air thick with the scent of lilies and the sharp, undeniable sting of confusion. My name is Sarah, and I married David. He was everything I had ever dreamed of. Kind, successful, devastatingly charming. Our love story wasn't a whirlwind. It was a slow, steady, magnificent burn that led us right here, right to this room, where I was supposed to be celebrating the start of our forever. But the room was empty. He left me. Not forever, not with a note, but he simply stepped out. It was just past 11 o'clock. We had arrived 30 minutes prior, exhausted but exhilarated. He had poured us each a glass of champagne, his eyes dancing with that familiar, exciting sparkle. "I just need to make a quick call," he'd said, running a gentle hand over my cheek. "It's work, a crisis. I promise. 10 minutes, baby. Just wait here." 10 minutes! That was 2 hours ago. The initial shock had given way to worry, then to a slow burning irritation, and now just a hollow ache. I had called his phone 3 times. It went straight to voicemail. I tried to convince myself it was exactly what he said, a work crisis. But what kind of crisis pulls a groom away from his bride on their wedding night? I walked over to the immense window, the city lights glittering like scattered diamonds. Below, the reception hall lights were finally going out. Everything felt closed. Finished. Except for my heart, which felt wide open and increasingly exposed. I tried to replay the day. Was there a sign, a flicker of doubt in his eyes? No, he had looked at me down the aisle with such profound love it had brought tears to my mother's eyes. He had held my hand through every toast, every ridiculous dance. The memory only deepened the betrayal. It was too perfect to shatter this quickly. I shed the beautiful, constricting dress and slipped into a silk robe. I paced the room, the sound of my own footsteps the loudest thing in the silence. The clock on the bedside table ticked past 11:30 p.m., then 11:45 p.m. The silence was becoming menacing. It felt less like he was on a call and more like he was running from something. I grabbed my phone, ready to call his best man, to call the hotel desk, to demand they find my husband. My finger hovered over the contact list. Suddenly, a realization hit me. A flash of memory from a conversation we had months ago. David had been talking about his childhood, about a fear he had never quite shaken. Something about an old, forgotten storage unit his family owned, a place he swore he would never go near again. He had mentioned his father always kept a small black box there, saying it contained the key to everything. It was a strange, almost irrational detail that had stuck with me. Why did I think of that now? It made no sense. It was a wedding night, not a ghost story. But the knot in my stomach tightened. I looked around the room. Everything was his. The expensive luggage, the cufflinks on the dresser, his wallet. But his car keys were gone. Just as the digital clock flipped to 11:59 p.m., a noise broke the agonizing silence. It wasn't a phone call. It wasn't a knock. It was a rhythmic, almost mechanical thud, scrape, thud, scrape. It was too heavy for a cart, too slow for a person, and it was getting closer. My heart hammered against my ribs. I froze, my hands still on the phone. This was not the luxurious hotel I thought I was in. This was suddenly a labrala. The sound stopped right outside our suite door. I held my breath, listening for a voice, a cough, anything. Silence. Then I heard a faint, undeniable metallic click, the sound of a key turning in the lock. My body screamed at me to run, but my feet were glued to the floor. The door swung open slowly, agonizingly, and the first thing I saw was not my husband. It was a pair of old, worn-out, mud-caked boots, and in the low light of the hallway, a massive, rusted steel box, barely fitting through the doorway. The figure behind it was an old man, his face deeply lined, wearing the faded uniform of a long-haul trucker, not a hotel employee. He grunted, pushing the box inside, then leaning against the doorframe, catching his breath. He hadn't used a master key. He held a familiar, tarnished brass key in his hand, a key David kept on his personal key ring. "You, Sarah?" the man wheezed, his voice gravelly. I could only nod, mute with shock. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a folded square of paper. "Your husband gave me this, paid me $2,000, cash, just to get this box here and wait. He said you'd be sitting up." He handed me the note. It wasn't typed, it was David's frantic scrawl, the ink slightly smeared. "My dearest Sarah, if you are reading this, I failed you in the most spectacular way, and I am so deeply sorry. This is not about another woman. This is not about leaving. This is about a family secret that decided tonight, of all nights, was the time to resurface and claim its due. The moment we got back to the room, I got a text, a burner phone, a threat. It involved a piece of information my father hid decades ago in the place I told you about, the storage unit. They threatened to expose everything, ruin the family name, and worst of all, they specifically said they would come for you if I didn't comply immediately and alone. I had to go. I used the crisis call as a cover. I told Bill, the man who brought the box, to deliver this and wait downstairs. I know this is unforgivable, but I couldn't risk your safety. Open this box only if I am not back by sunrise. If I am not back, the contents will explain everything and give you what you need to protect yourself. Please, stay here. Be safe. I love you more than life itself. D. I dropped the note. It fluttered to the carpet. The old man, Bill, shuffled his feet. He told me to wait until dawn. "What are your orders, ma'am?" "My orders?" My voice was a shaky whisper. "Tell me exactly where he went, Bill." He didn't say ma'am. He just drove off fast in his own car. Said he was going to deal with the past, and he told me to give you this warning. Whatever is in the box, don't follow him. Bill looked genuinely troubled. He seemed desperate. I looked from the note to the box. It was a heavy, industrial nightmare, secured with 3 large, rusty latches. The air of luxury in the suite was completely gone, replaced by the smell of aged metal and a creeping sense of dread. I reached out and touched the cold steel. Do not follow him. David knew that the one way to ensure I would absolutely, unequivocally do something was to tell me not to. He knew my stubborn heart. I didn't know what kind of danger he was in, but the fact he was protecting me from it meant I had to be there to protect him. I thanked Bill, giving him a huge tip to go home, ensuring I was truly alone. I knew I couldn't wait until dawn. I had to know what was in the box now. I searched David's jacket, found a small, heavy-duty utility key, and forced the latches open with a screech that echoed in the silent room. Inside, there were no guns, no bundles of cash, just dust and the ghosts of David's past. The box contained old, yellowed legal documents detailing the transfer of property from a family trust in the 1980s. There was a faded photograph of David's father and an older woman, both smiling tightly. And then there were 2 personal items. A heavy antique locket engraved with the initials E.C. and a small, worn-out child's diary. I picked up the diary. The handwriting was neat, childlike, and dated from when David was 10 years old. I flipped it open to a random page. It was about a birthday party, but then a small, darker entry. Daddy took away the black book. He said Aunt Elise will never find it. He said he did what he had to do to protect us. It feels like a lie, but I don't know why. My blood ran cold. Aunt Elise, the older woman in the photograph. This wasn't a business crisis. This was a deep, inherited family conflict, likely involving fraud or theft of this black book or property. The locket must be the key David mentioned. I frantically searched the legal papers, my eyes scanning the fine print. Finally, I found a deed of sale that listed a property address, handwritten in the margin, and next to it the words, Unit 407, North End Storage Facility. The storage unit! I threw off the silk robe, pulled on jeans, a dark sweater, and my boots. I grabbed the locket, the diary, and the legal papers, stuffing them into a small bag. I wasn't waiting. The love I felt for David was too strong to be a passive observer in his life's defining crisis. I found my own car keys, left the absurdly beautiful suite, and descended to the street. The drive across the city was surreal. The streets were deserted. I kept checking the rearview mirror, half expecting to see headlights following me. Every intersection, every shadow seemed to hold the threat David had warned me about. The luxury wedding ring on my finger felt like a beacon, a symbol of the responsibility I was taking on. The North End storage facility was exactly the kind of place you wouldn't want to be alone at 1 a.m. A sprawling, chain-link fence surrounded a cluster of bleak, corrugated steel buildings. The main office light was out. I had to assume David was already inside. I parked my car a block away and approached on foot, the only sound the crunch of my boots on the gravel. I spotted David's SUV parked haphazardly near one of the middle buildings. I crept closer, moving along the shadow line of the building. As I reached the corner, I stopped. I could hear them. The rhythmic thud, scrape, thud, scrape from the hallway wasn't from Bill dragging the box. It was the faint, muffled sound of David's hand anxiously hitting the corrugated steel of a unit door. I peered around the corner. David was standing a few feet from Unit 407, his back to me, facing a woman who must have been Aunt Elise. She was impeccably dressed, severe, and looked years younger than the photograph suggested. hardened by decades of bitterness. You brought the documents, David, but where is it? Elise's voice was sharp, low, and cold enough to cut glass. The locket. The key to the safe deposit box. That box holds the confession that your father stole my portion of the family estate. I want it, David. Tonight. David's voice was strained, laced with a fear he never showed. I don't have it, Annalise. My father never gave it to me. He wasn't lying. He had given it to me, indirectly, in the steel box. What does it matter? We can settle this legally. We're family. Family? She scoffed. Your father ruined my life to build yours. I've waited 30 years for this proof, and I will not wait another hour. I know you're married now. I know you have something to protect. I can make your perfect little life disappear, David. Give me the locket. He shook his head, looking utterly defeated, his gaze fixed on the dirty floor. That was my opening. I stepped out of the shadows, dropping the heavy documents bag to the ground with a loud thump. He can't give it to you, I said, my voice steady despite the tremor in my hands. Both their heads snapped toward me. David's eyes, wide with horror, were the last thing I saw before I focused entirely on Elise. Sarah, what are you doing here? I told you to stay. David started, moving to push me behind him. I put a hand on his chest, stopping him. I'm his wife, Elise. What he has, I have. And what he's protecting, I'm protecting. I walked toward the woman, stopping just beyond the glare of the single security lamp. The locket is safe. The documents you need are right here. I pointed to the bag. You want justice for what David's father did? Fine, we will face it. We will not run, we will not hide, but you will not threaten my husband or our marriage again. The raw audacity of my presence, still in a silk robe covered by a sweater, must have stunned her. Elise simply stared, her expression slowly shifting from fury to a calculating respect. You brought a bride to a negotiation, David. How sentimental, she finally hissed. No, I interjected. He didn't bring me. I came. Because the secret you're holding has stained your family for decades. It ends tonight. We'll use the proof to clear the name, we'll settle the estate, and we'll start our life together without the shadow hanging over it. David left me alone on our wedding night to protect me. But I'm not the kind of woman who stays safe when the man she loves is walking into a trap. David took my hand, his grip crushing, his eyes suddenly full of a magnificent, unconditional love, deeper than any I had seen that day. We didn't spend our wedding night in a luxurious bed. We spent it standing in a dusty storage facility, negotiating the fallout of a 30-year-old crime. We didn't share champagne. We shared a desperate determination to face the truth together. The unexpected sounds I heard weren't ghosts or thieves. They were the sounds of a family secret finally being uncovered, and the quiet, solid sound of a marriage being built on a foundation stronger than silk and promises, a foundation of shared battle. It was the best, worst, most unforgettable wedding night I could have ever imagined. Thank you for spending your time with Alicia. If this story moved you, let your support be felt. Like, share, and subscribe. Your presence inspires the next tale. Until our voices meet again. Stay calm, stay curious, and keep dreaming.